Mr. President, you've made it a practice of not commenting on potential personnel moves.
Of course I did.
Calling in speculation.
And you can understand why. Because
Friday,
we got people's reputations at stake. And on Friday I stood up and said I don't appreciate the speculation about
Zorc the Dark One.
He's doing a fine job. I strongly support him.
But what do you say to critics who believe that you're ignoring the advice of retired generals, military commanders, who say that there needs to be a change?
I say I listen to all voices, but mine's the final decision. And
Zorc the Dark One
is doing a fine job. He's not only transforming the military, he's fighting a war on terror. He's helping us fight a war on terror. I have strong confidence in
Zorc the Dark One.
I hear the voices, and I read the front page, and I know the speculation, but I'm the decider, and I decide what is best, and what's best is for
Zorc the Dark One
to remain as the Secretary of Defense.
Oh, hello there. I'm Zorc the Dark One. You may remember me from such videos as my Daenerys Targaryen is an alien video. I mean, look at it. It got billions of views. It went viral, guys. I'm basically famous now. I'm a celebrity. I have now joined the ranks of some of the most popular A Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers out there. I'm among the ranks of the big dogs, guys. Hills Alive, Phoenix Ashes, Company of the Cat, Our Hilts Hurt, Rawest, the guy who probably blocked me, Alt-Shift-X, Quinn the GM, Fantasy Haven, Talking Thrones, David Lightbringer, and now me, and everybody else that I wasn't smart enough to remember. But today, guys, we are not doing a Yu-Gi-Oh! Opening. Oh no, today is something different. Today, we are going to embark on a journey. We will be reviewing the entire A Song of Ice and Fire, A Game of Thrones book. So, ladies and germs, gather round and sit back as I, Zorc the Dark One, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Opening YouTuber who spends his days opening cards rather than, I don't know, going out and exercising, I will be explaining this book to you and telling you what I think. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our very first episode of Bookception. Alright, now that I'm done sounding like a total idiot, the rest of the video, I'm just going to wing it, guys. But yeah, so some quick context. So, we were told by YouTuber Phoenix Ashes, go check them out, they make a lot of great content, to read A Song of Ice and Fire. And me having nothing better to do with my life, I decided to read it. And I figured, you know, what the hell, might as well review it and tell people what I think. Not that most of you are even asking for my opinion or probably even care. But I do, ow, gosh, sorry, I hit my elbow. But I do want to give a really quick disclaimer, you guys. I do not have a college education. I graduated high school. That's to the extent of my education. So I'm not good with looking at things through an analytic lens. I mean, the closest I've done to analyzing something is when I made my Zorc Necrophage versus Night Shroud video. Go watch it. Watch all my videos. Subscribe to me. But even that video, I just did like a rough draft, and then my sister basically wrote the whole thing for me. And, you know, I just uploaded it and had her read it for me because I'm so bad at narrating shit. But, yeah, this is my sister's channel right there, Silver Princess. Go subscribe to her. But, yeah, guys, I just don't really look too deep into books. I'm also a casual, honestly, when it comes to books. My only experience is Lord of the Rings, and a lot of the Star Wars books. I read Harry Potter, and I read a few of the Wheel of Time books, not all of them, but that's really my only experience. And even then, I don't really try to look too deep into like the meaning of life or anything like that. So I'm just going to do this from a casual standpoint. But one of the reasons I also want to do this is because I feel like whenever I watch videos about like Game of Thrones or the book series A Song of Ice and Fire, I always end up it's always from like the lens of, you know, people who, you know, they're very, you know, they're very well versed in this. They analyze things properly. You know, so, you know, I mean, all the YouTubers I just mentioned, I mean, they're all leagues ahead of me in terms of their analytics stuff. But I just thought it would be nice to, you know, review it from a casual perspective for like the average viewers, the average Joe or Jane out there that normally doesn't get into books, you know. But yeah, I guess we'll just get into it from here. Like I said, I'm just gonna wing this. It's 6:14 p.m. right there, right here. It's 6:14 p.m. right here in California. I don't know how long this video is gonna go for. It could be 5 hours for all I know. You know, I could be here well past dinner time. So, but yeah, we're just gonna jump into this, guys. So if I come off like a total idiot, I apologize. Don't hit me. But yeah, here we go. And once again, go sub to Phoenix Ashes or you're a loser. But anyways, I'm just kidding. You're not a loser, but go sub to Phoenix Ashes. They are awesome. But anyways, here we go, guys. So for those of you who have never heard of A Song of Ice and Fire, it is the book series that the HBO TV show Game of Thrones is based off of. Now, if you don't know what Game of Thrones is either, why are you even here and how did you even get here? But Game of Thrones is basically like a fantasy series, like done in like a medieval setting with a lot of elements of realism into it and some magic here and there. It's not your average fantasy story. It's not, you know, you're not dealing with the average Saiyan warrior anymore. DBZ reference, but yeah, you're not dealing with the average fantasy story anymore here. It's a lot of realism incorporated into it. Just a little quick rundown about my tastes. Normally, I'm not too much of a fan of realism into fiction, mainly because if I want realism, I'll just turn on the news. You know, I like to, I like fiction just to forget about reality for a second. But when I watched Game of Thrones, I thought it was great. I thought it was really good, and I never got around to reading the books, but after watching so many YouTubers talk about the books, and you know, after being told by Phoenix Ashes to read it, I decided to, you know what, might as well, whatever. And so I'm coming at this as somebody who's already watched the show, so I obviously knew what to expect already, and a lot of the stuff didn't surprise me because, you know, I already knew it was going to happen. But regardless, it's still far more different than the TV show, guys. There's so much that the TV show left out that the books had, and then there's a lot of stuff in the TV show that didn't happen in the books, which I will cover that. And then but you know what, I guess I'll just talk about this while I'm explaining, while I'm reviewing it. Once we get to the end of the video, I'll address a couple of things, my opinions and stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, let's just I'm just gonna shut up and just get into it. So no, the way George R.R. Martin, the author, writes the book is through POVs, but not even first person POVs. It's still in third person, but it's from a specific point of view, if that makes sense. Like I said, I don't have a college education, so I'm not good with narratives or stuff like that. I am sorry if I'm talking too fast. I'm not used to this, so forgive me. Roast me in the comments if you want. But we start off, the first is a prologue. I think this is supposed to be from the person's name is Will. I think it's supposed to be his point of view, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. For all I know, it could be from somebody else's point of view, or it could be from nobody's point of view, and I'm just an idiot. But So we start out with the prologue, and we follow the border patrol, basically. Just kidding. They're the Night's Watch, and they're going ranging beyond the wall. And if you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what, you learn what the wall is, like in episode 2. But basically, the wall separates the 7 kingdoms. And by the way, guys, I'm sorry if I don't explain the setting, but I'm gonna assume most of you have already seen Game of Thrones. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here if you didn't. But it basically separates the 7 kingdoms of Westeros from the lands beyond the wall, where wildlings live, and a bunch of other mythical creatures that are believed to be myths. But we follow Will, and he's going ranging with the Night's Watch, so they're exploring beyond the wall and stuff. And Will is kind of like, it seems he doesn't really seem to like, he kind of just seems to be like, yeah, I'm just here, doing what I'm ordered to do, but he's also like, he doesn't really like taking orders from the person leading the ranging party. And gosh, I don't remember who was leading the ranging party. I think it was Sir Waymar, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. I have notes here, but God, it's all jumbled up. But he doesn't seem to like that he's leading the ranging, because it seems like Will has been on way more rangings than this guy. So it seems like he's a little jealous that he didn't lead the ranging. But either way, none of this matters. I'm just pointing it out. But they're going ranging beyond the wall, and Will basically I'm looking through my notes. But basically they found I guess Will had found a wildling encampment, and they're going out to find it. And so Will's basically saying that that the people were dead when they saw them, and so they're going to investigate. And when they get there, they find that there's no bodies or nothing. So they kind of assume that Will was just like, they were sleeping, and when he saw them, like, they were just sleeping and they weren't really dead. Well, when they go exploring further, oh my God, they are all completely. Guess what? These people really aren't actually dead. Well, I mean, they are, but they're still up and walking around, and they get attacked by basically, if you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what they get attacked by: White Walkers. If you haven't, again, I don't know why you're here, but I'll explain it to you anyways. They get attacked by the White Walkers, and White Walkers are just these basically ice zombies. They're risen back to life from the dead. They got blue eye, like deep blue eyes. They bring even colder weather with them, but they basically attack these guys and ambush them. They completely slaughter them. And there's a really it's such a, the way it describes the fight scene is really cool, because Will charges one of them, and as soon as his sword makes contact with the White Walker's ice sword, just completely shatters in half. And I just thought that was really cool. But I got a lot of horror story vibes from this. I just thought it was really well written. It made me feel like I was reading a horror story. And yes, I just thought it was really cool. But basically, Will survives, and basically Will survives. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I don't think it was Will that attacked. I think it was what was his name? I think it was Sir Waymar that attacked. Sorry. I think it was Sir Waymar that charged the let me see. Yes, it was Sir Waymar. So it was Sir Waymar that charged the White Walker, and then his sword just shatters to pieces, and then Will sees this, and then he basically just dips out. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, who the hell would stay like who the hell would stay after that, you know? And then that's basically how the prologue ends. He just like dips out and runs off as fast as he can, which again, I don't blame him. I mean, there's freaking ice zombies, like run, you know? So we now go into the first POV, which is Bran. And if you've seen Game of Thrones, we get a scene that introduces like Ned and you know, Arya, Bran, Jon, you know, Robb, Catelyn, and you know, it shows like Bran like practicing archery. That doesn't happen here. It just cuts straight to the infamous execution scene. And so they basically have Will. And one thing to keep in mind is when you're reading it through the POV of the person, they don't actually tell you who they are, like who the person like they're seeing is. It's usually it's usually told who it is after you're reading it quite a bit. So by that I mean, so you don't know this is Will until they mention that he was a deserter. And so Bran is actually, when they're executing him, Bran actually thinks that it's a wildling, but Ned basically executes him for deserting. And it says this is Bran's first time seeing an execution take place. And Bran is 7 in this in the book, and I mean taking your 7-year-old to watch, I mean I don't know what was going through Ned's head. I mean, I think it could have waited another couple years, honestly, if you ask me. But anyway, to each their own. Ned apparently thinks this is the right thing to do, and they literally they behead him right in front of Bran. And Jon actually tells him that to hold his horse properly because it might get startled. And he even tells him, "Don't look away, or you know, Father's gonna know if you do." And they end up you know, after they execute him, you know, Robb and Jon end up racing off. I don't know, I guess they're desensitized to this. I mean, I don't know how you could suddenly turn cheerful after watching somebody be beheaded, but I mean, that's just me. Anyways, so we get a scene where Ned like goes to Bran, and I mean, not a scene, but I just call it a scene, but a passage where Ned goes to Bran, and you know, he asks him if he's okay, and then and I really like this scene because Bran asks Ned, which is his father. Bran asks Ned if that Robb told them, because Robb told them that that the man died bravely, but you know, Jon told him that no, he wasn't brave, he was afraid. And this is when Bran asks Ned, can a man still be brave when he's afraid? And Ned says that's the only time a man can be brave. And I don't know, I just really like that because, you know, it's kind of true, you know. Brave means you're scared, you're afraid, and then you're doing something even though you're scared, because that's what bravery means. It doesn't mean you're fearless. It just means you're afraid, but you're doing it anyway. And then, you know, Ned asks him if you understand why, if Bran understands why he did it, you know, why he executed the guy. And this is when Bran thinks he was a wildling, which again, you don't really know who the characters are until, you know, the person whose point of view is finally knows who they are. And this is where you know, Ned tells him that he was a deserter from the Night's Watch. And then he asks him, you know, Ned tells him that, you know, if you're going to take a man's life, then you owe it to him to look him in the eye and hear his final words. Which just, by the way, Ned doesn't show Ned getting his final words. It just starts with him beheading the guy. So I don't know if Ned even did that, but you know, we're gonna just assume he did. And then this is where they find something. So they call out that I think it's Jon who calls out that Robb found something, and then we find a dead stag. So similar to the TV show, with sorry, not a dead stag, a dead dire wolf with stag antlers in its carved into it, like, you know, punctured into it. And this is where they find the direwolf pups, you know. And, you know, it's pretty much similar to the TV show. They find the direwolf pups and stuff. And then this is where Ned this is This is where Ned comments that I think it's Ned, but they either Ned or somebody else was with them, but they comment that they're gonna die soon enough, which basically means they're gonna die without their mother, and so Theon is about to execute one of them. I think it's Theon. Yeah, he's about to execute one of them, and Bran doesn't want to, and then this is where Jon steps in and says, there's 5 pups, 3 male, 2 female, one for each of the Stark children, which they don't mention their genders until after we see them name them. Which here they do mention their genders in the book, but in the show it's just there's 5 pups, one for each of the Stark children. But anyways, sorry, I'm dragging on way too much. But basically Jon it's his way of convincing Ned not to kill them. This is where Ned says, you'll train them yourselves, feed them yourselves, and blah, blah, blah. And then, God's help you if you neglect them. So you're going to do everything on your own and I'm not going to help you, tough love basically, which, is fair, I guess. If you want them, then you're going to keep them. I don't see a problem with that. But this is where something interesting happens. Jon claims to hear something, but nobody else does. And then he finds Ghost. And Ghost is actually, they do describe him as being, very, very, just ghost white, but it's just interesting because nobody else hears it other than Jon. And he's very far away. He's where, I think, in the frozen river, where they're, I think it says, it's, near a bridge or something. But the fact that nobody else hears him other than Jon, it kind of just it's hinting that Jon basically has magic into him if he can hear, or at least some kind of telepathic bond with Ghost. So anyways, now we go off to Catelyn's POV, and she's basically she's walking into the Godswood, and then she's one of the things she mentions, which she clearly shows her lack of disdain towards the old gods. But one of the things she mentions is that in the north, every castle has a godswood, every godswood has a heart tree, and every heart tree has a face, which is kind of hinting almost these heart trees and stuff, these werewoods and stuff, almost operate kind of like a hive mind almost, which is a little bit unsettling for me. Honestly, if I saw a face carved into a tree, I'd just walk the other way. That's really scary as hell. But anyways, Catelyn goes to speak with Ned, and they kind of just have small talk. There's really nothing too crazy. They're just talking small talk about the direwolf pups, and then Catelyn mentions that Rickon is not quite sure what to think about the pups. And then Ned asks if he's afraid, and then Catelyn says, yeah, he's kind of afraid. And Ned's response is just so tone deaf. It's he must face his fears. He will not be young forever. Winter is coming. I'm just dude, can you just be a dad for once? I mean, I get it. You want your kids to be tough, but God, I think Rickon is 6. I think I don't remember. I think they say he's 6. I could be wrong though, but bro, come on, dude. He's really tone deaf. He just is. But so moving on. Catelyn describes the house words of Stark are just very chilling, because I guess every other house has talks about other stuff glory, stuff like that, and the words of House Stark are winter is coming, which is just oh hey, we're gonna die soon. I mean, that's how I saw it. That's how I saw Catelyn basically interpreting it. Now they mentioned that Ned was fostered that was fostered with John Aaron, and this is because this is where Catelyn finally tells him what she's there for, which is to tell him that she got news that John Aaron is dead, and Ned was fostered with him as a child, so John Aaron's kind of like a second father to him. And then there's also the fact that, if you watch the TV show, you'll know that Ned's dad and his brother were killed by Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King. We'll get to that when we get there, though. This is where Ned tells Catelyn, go take the kids, go visit your sister, be with her. Which, okay, now we're back to the Ned Stark we know, honorable person, Power Ranger, basically. And this is where Catelyn says she would if she could, but the letter she received also says that the king is going to come to Winterfell. And it actually describes Ned as being, like, actually happy. Like, he's happy that Robert's coming, which, Catelyn, says she knew he would be happy. Which, I mean, I get they were both, they're both childhood friends, So obviously he's going to be happy that Robert's coming to visit. And, I mean, I think it's been I don't know how many years since he last saw Robert, 14 or something, or maybe a little less. But yeah, it says it's been a while since he's seen Robert. He's happy he's coming. This is so nothing too big from this chapter, really, honestly. I personally didn't like TV show Catelyn. I might like her in the book. I don't know. But for now, it's kind of just, she seems very pretentious, which I don't really like. And in many ways, it's understandable. She's a highborn lady, lady of Winterfell, whatever, but I don't know. She comes off very pretentious and I just really don't like it. But she is very, Catelyn is very superstitious. She talks about the sign of, like, the dead direwolf and the antlers lodged into the direwolf. And she sees it as, like, a sign, like, basically, hey, because the symbol of House Baratheon is a stag. And, they had stag antlers in the direwolf. And she's basically, trying to allude to the fact that, hey, the king is coming. His house is a stag. I don't know. This could mean, the Starks are going to get killed off or something. I don't know. But which I find it very interesting because in the TV show, she just doesn't strike me like the type. I mean, sometimes she does, but I don't know. Most of the time she strikes me as like the type that wouldn't be too, like, superstitious. But I don't know. Maybe I just missed something. But yeah, she is very superstitious here, which I don't know if you've seen the TV show. Obviously, that's foreshadowing. But anyways, moving on, we arrive to the point of view of one of my favorite characters, Éowyn. Just kidding, it's Daenerys. Éowyn would completely stomp her, no contest. But anyways, Daenerys is my second favorite character in the TV show. It could change in the book series, I don't know, but she is my second favorite character. I just think she's awesome, and she's basically getting dressed, and she's talking to her brother Viserys Targaryen. Now, if you've seen Game of Thrones, you'll know that Viserys Targaryen is an asshole. However, it is important to understand that in the book, he's an even bigger asshole. I mean, I hated this guy. I was hoping for his death very soon, you guys. That's how much I hated him. I just could not stand him. I hope somebody kills this guy, honestly. I hope he dies soon. Foreshadowing. But she's basically getting dressed, and one of the things I like is that she's already, like, seems like she's very more intuitive than what she seemed in the TV show. So he's handing her, like, a very expensive a cloth to put over herself, and then they're staying with somebody named Illyrio, a Magister Illyrio, and she basically asks, like, why does he give us so much? And it's already her being very intuitive, because you wouldn't think somebody would give you so much luxury unless they wanted something in return. And I just really like it. I like that she's already coming off very very intuitive. And this is where Viserys, in his total dimwittedness, is like, Illyrio is no fool. The Magister knows that I will not forget that, that he owes me when I take my throne, blah, blah, blah. This guy's just so, gosh, I hate him. And then this is where you find out that Daenerys is going to be sold, and she's going to be sold to as a wife, basically, to a guy named Khal Drogo. And if you know who Khal Drogo is, it's basically he's a Khal from one of the Dothraki Khalasars. But Viserys is, oh my god, I hate him, dude. He grabs her by. I feel so weird. I hope I don't get demonetized or anything. I mean, not that I'm even monetized, but I hope I don't get banned for saying this. But guys, he grabs her fucking tit and squeezes it hard, and then tells her that she's not gonna fail him tonight, or she's gonna wake the dragon. And she's, you don't want to wake the dragon, do you? And oh my god, I hate him. I hope he dies a terrible death. Gosh, he's just so annoying. He's so. My God, I never thought I was going to hate somebody as much as Viserys. I mean, if you think Joffrey is bad, gosh, man, this guy, he's something else. But anyway, so Daenerys is basically, kind of introspecting a bit. And she's talking about, like, she's like recalling how Viserys mentioned a home somewhere across the narrow sea, which she's referring to Westeros. And Viserys calls that their land, that they're, it was taken from them, by during Robert's rebellion. But Viserys, one of the things Daenerys mentions, that Viserys had been a boy when that happened, so he has memories of it. But Daenerys doesn't, because she wasn't born. I mean, she was, but she was like a newborn when she was barely born, and they ended up leaving. Now, they mentioned the whole how Robert slayed Rhaegar on the Trident, how Tywin, sacked King's Landing, and how Jaime killed Aerys Targaryen. And then it also mentions that, Daenerys was born on Dragonstone. She's born like 9 months after Robert defeated Rhaegar. And they were, taken off of Dragonstone by one of the knights that served their house. Let me see my notes here. I think Sir Willem, I think it was. So they were basically taken away from Dragonstone before Robert's armies arrived on Dragonstone. I think they mentioned too that their servants or something were planning to sell them to Robert's armies. That's when Sir Willem snuck them out. And then they also mentioned that they lived in a house that had a big red door. And Daenerys had her own room with a lemon tree outside of her window. This is really sad too, because that was the life Daenerys knew. That was what she grew up in. That was what she knew. And it was sad because it says that when Sir Willem died, their servants stole everything they had from them and basically kicked them out of their house. And it mentions that, she cried when the door closed on them forever. And they had been wandering the streets ever since. And I just thought that was really sad, because that's all she ever knew, And I really thought it was like a really sad situation to go through. And then, basically growing up in the streets after that. So anyways, now we have basically Khal Drogo and his men coming, and this is just basically where they showcase Daenerys to Drogo, and then Viserys mentions to Daenerys that do you see his braids, like they're like they only cut them when they're defeated, which basically means Khal Drogo has never been beaten. So basically means he's a very, very tough fighter. And now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, Daenerys is 13, you guys. 13. I think Khal Drogo has to be like in his like 30s or something. So that's like very like, oh man, dude, like, and she doesn't want to be his wife. It's so sad that Viserys is just selling her because he wants his 7 kingdoms back. I hope this guy dies a terrible death, you guys, okay? And then he tells her, Daenerys like tells him that she wants to go home, you know, like she's telling him, please, and then she's like, and then, you know, Viserys just tells her like just smile and stand up straight and let him see your boobs. And I'm like, this guy is just a total douchebag. Like, I hope he dies a terrible death, you guys. But I love this chapter because it just gives so much depth to Daenerys and just reminds me how much I loved her character in the TV show. And I just hate Viserys. I hope he dies a terrible death. So, moving on, we now arrive to the next POV, which is Boromir. Just kidding, it's Ned Stark. Boromir would stomp him. But it's Ned Stark. And sorry for all the Lord of the Rings references. It's just, you know, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. But so Ned Stark, we're going through from his point of view, and this is where the royal family arrives. So the king, his entourage, you know, the whole shebang. And Robert, you know, goes up to him, you know, greets Ned, you know, it's good to see you. It's just, you know, they haven't seen each other in so long, you know. And then this is where Ned actually mentions that you know, Robert has gained a lot of weight. He says 8 stone. I don't know what that means, guys. So somebody tell me if you know what 8 stone means. I'm assuming 80 pounds, probably, maybe 100 pounds. I don't know. But Ned basically says that, yeah, Robert does not look the same at all, because I think Robert had mentioned that like Ned hasn't changed a bit. Then this basically, you know, Robert tells him to take him to the crypts, and then it says Cersei doesn't actually say this, but you know, in the narrative part, it says that Cersei tries to tell him that they've been writing for a long time, you know, the dead could wait, you know, blah blah blah. So we go into the crypts, and basically Ned is leading Robert through the crypts, and this is where they he mentions Jon Arryn here, and I think he let me see, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, sorry. Doesn't mention Jon Arryn. My bad. Sorry. Not yet. They basically take him to the tomb of Lyanna Stark's grave, and Lyanna Stark's, you know, in the crypt. They take him to her tomb basically. And so Lyanna Stark is, you know, was Ned's sister, and you know, Robert was saying that you know, she was more beautiful than what the statue depicts, and he asks Ned, like, you know, did you have to bury her here? And Ned tells her, I was with her when she died. She wanted to come home, you know, which could mean one of two things. It could mean like Lyanna never, you know, wanted to be away from her home, or that's where she wants to be buried, you know, at home. It could mean one of two things. You know, take it how you will. So Robert, you know, Robert mentions how, you know, he swore that he was going to kill Rhaegar for what he did, and then, you know, Ned says, you did already, and then, you know, Robert mentions only once, which is, you know, kind of like in the show, in my dreams I kill him every night, you know, which he doesn't say that. But this is where Ned asks him to tell him about Jon Arryn, and then you know, he just says it happened so quick, you know, it burned just right through him. And this is where Robert mentions that he wants to name Ned Hand of the King, you know, and And this basically tells him that he wants to name them Hand of the King. And oh well, actually no, sorry. Before that, Ned mentions that the Night's Watch is in trouble. It needs more funds, and Robert just completely dismisses it. He just completely doesn't care. He literally just says his words like, the wall has stood for 8,000 years. It can keep a few days more. He's just so why is he even the king? Honestly, just so completely disregards it, just doesn't even care. Which, in his defense, I don't think most kings care too much about the wall, honestly. But this is where he tells him that he wants to make him Hand of the King. And Ned really that's the last thing he wanted. Just doesn't want to be king. So similar to the TV show, he goes, I'm not worthy of the honor. And then, Ned just says, if I wanted to honor you, I'd let you, Robert says if I wanted to honor you, I would just let you retire, This is where he does that. He's planning to make Ned run his kingdom and fight his wars while he, eats, drinks, and whores his way, to an early grave, Well, I think he doesn't say whore. I think he says another word, but anyways, regardless, he wants to make Ned do all the work for him while he just does nothing and sits on his ass all day and drinks. What a great king. Holy shit. And then we find out that Robert wants to betroth his son Joffrey to Ned's to Ned's daughter Sansa. That this kind of just makes you wonder if Robert was just obsessed with Ned. Honestly, it seems like his obsession is with Ned more so than Lyanna, because he literally says, if Lyanna had lived, we would have been brothers. It really seems like he kind of just wanted to marry Lyanna so he and Ned could be related by law, which is just I don't know, maybe I'm just digging too deep, but yeah, he wants to betroth Joffrey and Sansa, and Ned just says Sansa's a girl, and, Robert says she's old enough. Yeah, she's old enough, it's just they're gonna marry in a couple years. And then this is where Ned says that he has to check with Catelyn first, his wife, and then this is where Robert says, yeah, let her know, whatever, sleep on it, but don't keep me waiting. I'm not patient. You can tell he's really just he just wants it. He wants them betrothed. Doesn't care at all what Ned thinks. Doesn't care at all what Ned's wife thinks. It's his way or the highway. And just, again, what a great king. Jeez. Anyway, so next POV we get is my favorite character, and Phoenix Ashes is probably going to have me killed for this, so I beg them for forgiveness. But my favorite character, Aragorn. Just kidding, it's Jon. Aragorn would just completely stomp Jon. It's not even close. But this is where so now in the show, so Jon is actually at the feast. In the show, he's not at the feast, and it makes it, he mentions that, Lady Stark didn't want to insult the royal family by sitting a bastard at the midst. He makes it seem like Catelyn just banned him from the feast. You're gonna eat with the dogs outside, And that's not what happens. In the book, he actually is at the feast. Now, he isn't allowed to sit with his siblings, okay? Which, okay, yeah, I guess that's sad, but I mean, considering it's implied that he sits with them every other day. So honestly, Jon, I love you, but Jesus Christ, you're being a baby, dude. Oh no, I can't sit with my brother and sisters for one night. What a tragedy. I mean, gosh, Jon, just quit being a baby, He's at the feast. He's enjoying it. He's drinking, eating. If I were him, I don't care, dude. I mean, at least I got to go, And this is where, he feeds Ghost, and we get a little funny scene where there's a dog. There's another dog, and, Ghost, they're like trying to steal Ghost's food, and then Ghost just like shows them who's boss, just growls at them. I just think it's really, I just thought it was really funny. Like, I'm sorry, but but yeah, it's just basically Jon's just moody. Oh, I don't get to sit with my siblings, you know. But anyways, I forgive him. He's my favorite character. Whatever, I forgive him. This is where Benjen, his uncle Benjen comes up to him, and they start talking. He says, "Hey, hey Uncle Ben, hey Jon, I heard about the dire wolves. Is that the one? And then this is where Jon says that he's pretty quiet. He's not like the other wolves. He's pretty quiet, and that's why I named him Ghost. So he named him Ghost, yes, because he's white. That's a bonus. But he named him Ghost because he's very silent. So yeah, so that's why he named him Ghost. So it's not because he's white. That was just a bonus. But that's where he starts talking about Benjen starts talking to Jon about Beyond the Wall. That there's dire wolves, beyond the wall. They hear them when they're ranging, and so but Benjen is in the Night's Watch. He's a member of the Night's Watch, and this is where Benjen says, "Don't you usually sit, with your brothers at the eat at the table with your brothers?" And Jon's just like, Lady Stark thought it might insult the royal family. Which, that's just kind of how it is. It would have been insulting. I mean, suck it up, bro. You're at the feast. It could have been worse. She could have just banned you from the feast altogether. Now, it says, sorry, I was looking at my notes. Now Jon is telling Benjen to, his uncle Benjen to, take him with him to the wall. His father, Ned will let him if he asks them. And then, Benjen's trying to tell him, like, the wall's not for you, Jon. It's miserable, it's terrible, don't come. Keep in mind, he's literally telling him not to come. That will be important later, but he's telling Jon not to come. And, Jon wants to go. And Jon, by the way, is 14. And he's very moody this chapter. I'm thinking about the show, but he's very moody this chapter. And he mentions Daeron Targaryen. The Daeron Targaryen was 14 when he conquered Dorne, because Benjen's trying to tell him, dude, you're 14, you're still a boy. And Jon's like, hey, if this guy did this, then I'm a man too, And then Benjen basically tells him that, and Daeron was also 18 when he died, like, you want to die. He's basically telling him, you want to die young. He's basically trying to tell him that, though Night's Watchmen don't have a high life expectancy, but you also learn that Jon's kind of just a little drunk by this point. And then, this is where Benjen tells him, like, hey, we have no life, basically. We can never have families, we can't have wives, no titles, nothing. And then Jon just says, like, I'm ready to swear your oath. And then, this is Benjen tries to tell him again, you don't understand what you'd be giving up. And then Benjen actually calls him son, as like hey, like, you don't know what you're giving up, son. And then Jon just angrily says, I'm not your son, which is so messed up, dude. Like, that's like, Jon, like, come on, dude. So, yeah, Jon's just being very moody. But, again, it is implied that he's kind of drunk. So, there's that, obviously. And then, so Jon just decides to, like, but what really sets him off is when Benjen tells him, to come back when you fathered a few bastards of your own, and then we'll see if you still want to join the Night's Watch or not. And then Jon angrily tells him, I will never father a bastard. And then it says that the people around him are like, can actually hear him, and they were like looking at him. And then he just gets up and, does the walk of shame because he caused a scene, which, now honestly, I don't blame Catelyn for not wanting to sit him if he's going to be acting this way. But this is where Jon meets Tyrion. He's introduced to Tyrion, and Tyrion actually, like, guys, this is the book literally describes Tyrion doing a fucking backflip, you guys, like a literal backflip, to jump down because he's standing like on a ledge and he does like a backflip. Like, I swear to God, like the way it describes it, like he should be like it describes him doing a backflip and then sliding or something. And then this guy should just be special forces at this point. So he basically meets Tyrion, and then Tyrion's like interested in his dire wolf. He's like, oh, hey, you know, is that a wolf, you know? And then he wants to take a closer look at it. And then this is where you know, Jon says, you know, hey, you can touch him if you want, you know, he's not gonna bite you or anything. And then this is where he tells him if I wasn't here, then yeah, he would probably kill you. And you know, again, Jon's kind of an asshole for saying this, but whatever, you know, it is what it is. And this is where Tyrion mentions, you know, just like similar to the TV show, he mentions like, you're Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you? And, you know, Jon gets upset, you know, oh no, I'm a bastard, which in many ways is kind of, you know, it's bastards like just seen like as like the lowest of the low in this world. And this is where Tyrion says, you know, did I offend you? You know, well, you know, sorry, you know, he says dwarves don't have to be, you know, tactful, which I thought was pretty funny. And, you know, this is where he gives a whole, you know, line that he does in the show that, wear the word bastard like armor because, you know, that way it can never be used to hurt you. And then, you know, he tells them like, you know, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes, you know, so similar to the TV show, but with, you know, minor adjustments. I kind of wish we saw, you know, Peter Dinklage doing a fucking backflip. That would have been funny. But, and just, you know, Tyrion gives him the speech, you know, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. And I just thought this chapter was so like, God, Jon was so broody. He's still my favorite character, but man, he's such a baby, dude. Like, you didn't sit with your siblings. Get over it. You know, life goes on. It's not the end of the world, dude. So, anyways, moving on. We now go back to Catelyn's point of view. And Catelyn is basically, Catelyn and Ned are basically, you know, making love, having sex, blah, blah, blah. And this is where they mentioned that like how the castle is kept warm, and it was built over some hot springs, and then I guess the hot springs actually run through the wall, which keeps the castle warm during the winter, which I thought that's pretty creative, honestly. I mean, for a world that doesn't have any technology at all, I thought that was cool. But this is where you know, Ned says, you know, he'll refuse Robert's command, and you know, Catelyn says you can't and you shouldn't. It's the dumb thing to do. He's the king. And you know, Ned says my duties are, you know, like my duties are in the north, you know. And you know, Catelyn's like trying to tell him, no, you know, don't refuse him, otherwise, you know, he's going to think why you refused him, you know. And then you know, Catelyn tells him that'll put them in danger. And, you know, Ned's very, you know, narrow-minded in a way, because he's saying, oh, no, Robert would never do anything to hurt me. Which, you know, okay. I mean, yeah, you're friends, but, I mean, you should never say, you know, never say nobody would ever do anything to hurt you. I mean, people do terrible shit all the time, even in today's world, you know. But this is where Catelyn tells him, you knew the man, but you don't know the king. So basically, basically she's telling Ned, you know, yeah, you knew Robert before he was king. You don't know him now. You know, he's, you know, it's been a long time. But yeah, she says it's been a long time. And then she's like you cannot, you know, you can't just refuse his offers, because even in our own world, if you were to you know, Robert's the one who made the offer of the betrothal to Ned between Joffrey and Sansa. Even in our world, if a king makes you an offer and then you refuse it, that's a huge insult. So you would never want to do that. That would be a huge insult to Robert if Ned did that. So he's kind of like stuck. He's kind of stuck in the middle. He has to do it even though he doesn't want to, you know? And then basically, basically, Ned's trying to say, yeah, but Sansa's still a child, and Catelyn tells her like, yeah, I was 12 when my dad, betrothed me to your brother, because Catelyn originally was betrothed to Ned's brother, Catelyn was betrothed to Ned's brother Brandon, and before Ned, but then when Brandon was killed by the Mad King, she was betrothed to Ned instead. But yeah, she says, hey, I was 12, it's not a big deal, and then they're not going to get married until they're of age anyway, it is what it is, And then this is where, somebody knocks at his door, and then it's Maester Lou, and he comes in, and then, which Catelyn is, naked, so she's naked, but I guess she's covering herself, I assume. She won't be soon, okay? Which but he brings a note and says, we have a letter for you, and it's not for my eyes though. And then this is when Ned says, all right, let's see it then. And this is where Maester Luwin says, oh, but it's not for you, it's for Lady Catelyn. It's not for you. And this is where I'm a little bit skeptical on what happened. So basically, it's pretty funny because Catelyn just stands up, just gets up out of bed completely naked. It's implied she's doing that because Ned literally says, Catelyn, what are you doing? And then Catelyn's like, lighting a fire. Maester Luwin has delivered all of my children. This is no time for modesty. It's like, yeah, I don't care if he sees me naked. He's seen me naked before already. It's not a big deal. And she basically throws the letter into the fire without letting Ned read it. And I mean, now she says that the letter says that she says that the letter says that Jon Arryn was killed by the Lannisters. And the Lannisters, you know who the Lannisters are if you've seen Game of Thrones. Queen Cersei, Robert's wife, that's her family. But here's what I found interesting is that Catelyn doesn't let Ned read it, which kind of makes you wonder, did the letter really say that or did she make it up? I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that the letter did say that and she just wants to protect Ned. But even so, I mean, why wouldn't you let your husband read it? You could have just let him look at it and then burn it. I don't think Ned would have mouthed off to anything. So it makes me kind of wonder if it really said that, or if Catelyn is just like making shit up. I don't know, I don't know, and yeah, but this is where this is where Ned says this is where Ned says you're going to be staying here in Winterfell, and then Catelyn says no, she doesn't want to stay in Winterfell. She wants to go with Ned. And Ned says, no, you need to rule in my stead, until Rob, becomes of age. He needs to learn how to rule. You need to teach him how to rule. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be Hand of the King, which is basically second in command. And then Catelyn says, well, what about the other children? What about my other children? And then Ned says, I'll leave Rick on. I'll need Rick on. He's too young to come. But the other ones, I'm going to take everybody else with me. So he's going to take Sansa. He's going to take Arya. He's going to take Bran with him. And Catelyn's basically begging him not to take all the children, and then she begs him to at least leave Bran. Let Bran stay. And, Ned says, no, he needs to grow up with the princes, become their friend, just like I became friends with Robert. It's understandable, but I mean, at the same time, like, she's begging him not to. And Ned's just like, no, I'm taking him with me and I don't care what you think, But I don't know. I just kind of think it's another Ned being a little bit tone deaf and being way too honorable. I mean, you can be a little lenient, homeboy. You don't need to be so by the book on everything, okay? Like Catelyn's like literally like begging him, like she's basically like crying, And sorry, I don't know if I mentioned, but this is Catelyn's point of view. Hopefully, I mentioned that. If I didn't, I'm sorry. And then this is when the Maester mentions, "What about Jon Snow?" And then Catelyn just gets angry and she's like, "Jon must go." Now, in the show, they kind of like imply that Catelyn's like just this evil stepmother, but so far I'm not seeing too much yet that like it's kind of like implied that she abuses Jon emotionally, but so far I don't really get that impression so far. I'm going to assume, though, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe she's just like Satan reincarnated. I don't know. But she basically says, "No, Jon must go. I don't want him here," and Ned was like, "Well, he and Rob are close, though, I was hoping I could leave him here." And she's like, "He's your son, not mine. I will not have him," and then this is what she says, they say Robert has a lot of bastards, and Ned's like, "Yeah, and Cersei has made sure none of them are in court. Jon would be shunned in the South. How could you be, why are you so cruel? You're a Satan reincarnated." But this is where Maester Luwin says, well, we could send him to the Night's Watch, He could take the Black, he expressed interest. Now, this is where I have to just bring up this point. Catelyn had just said that she wants Ned to leave Bran. Please leave Bran. Ned says, "No, I'm taking him with me." But Ned wants Jon to stay in Winterfell. So what I'm wondering is, why doesn't Ned just make a deal with Catelyn? Hey, you know what? We'll meet in the middle. I'll leave Bran here with you, and you let me take... And I'll leave Bran here with you. I won't take him, and in exchange, you let Jon stay. I think she would have gone with it, honestly. I think she would have done it. I feel like a lot of the reason she's being such a bitch about it is because Ned is taking almost all her children, and she's basically saying, like, "No, you know what? If you're going to keep my kids, if you're going to take my kids, I don't want your kid, So, in my opinion, I think that would have been a great middle ground, and I think it would have worked. I think she would have done it, but, I mean, it's just... I don't know why Ned doesn't do it, It's whatever. It is whatever. It is what it is, But... It is what it is. But anyways, as far as that chapter goes, I kind of Catelyn's a little bit fishy to me. Like I said, I don't know. I just don't trust her just burning the letter without even letting Ned read it. But anyways, moving on, the next point of view we're seeing is Arya, which it says she's 9 years old, and it also mentions that she's 2 years younger than Sansa, which would mean, obviously, math, Sansa would be 11, I think. But she's basically sewing, and they're sitting with Sansa, Princess Marcella, and then I think Jane Poole, and I don't know who the other one is, but it mentions the third girl. I don't know who the third one is, but so basically they're talking about the prince, and Arya is basically like very tomboyish. She doesn't like all the girly things. She doesn't like sewing. She doesn't want to be there. She really just hates her life, basically. And she, they're kind of making fun of her, basically, because she's not ladylike. And then Arya asks, "What are you guys laughing about?" And then I think it's Jane. She says they're talking about the prince, that he's going to marry her. He's going to marry he's going to marry Sansa, and then Sansa's going to be queen, and then this is where Sansa asked Arya, "What do you think? What did you think of the prince? He's very gallant, right?" And Arya just goes, "Jon says he looks like a girl." And this is where Sansa goes like, "Oh, poor Jon. He's just jealous because he's a bastard. He's a loser for life, and he's going to amount to nothing. I mean, she doesn't say that, but she might as well. And then Arya's like, she defends him. He's like, he's our brother, you know. And then this is where they're taking the lessons with Asepta, and Asepta is basically kind of like a nun almost. That's the best way I could describe them. I think that they're kind of like a nun in a way. But she's basically in charge of teaching them how to sew, how to do, you know, girly things and stuff. And she looks at Arya sewing, and she basically tells Arya that, oh, your stitches suck, just give up on life, you're terrible. Which, you know, I really feel bad for Arya, because I don't, it's not even that she's not trying, it's just that she's not good at it, you know, and, you know, it just is what it is. Not everybody's going to be good at everything. I mean, I don't know how to sew. I mean, you know, I have no idea how to sew. And, you know, Arya, like, storms off. Arya storms off, and she just tells him that I have to go shoe a horse, you know. And she storms off and runs away. And you could tell she's very jealous and envious of Sansa, because in the POV she mentions that Sansa has everything. She can sew, she can dance, she can, you know, she's perfect. She's a Power Ranger basically. She's older than her. And then but she also mentions that, you know, Sansa and her friends call her Horseface and neigh at her whenever they can. Now, I kind of wonder, why doesn't Arya just, you know, tell her father that, hey, these other girls are calling me these names? Because they shouldn't really be doing that, because Arya is a lady technically. She's up there. She's like a nobility, and Sansa's friends are just the help. They're children of the help. That's literally what they are. You know, they're children of like I think Jane is the daughter of the steward of House Stark, and they really shouldn't be talking to Arya that way. So I kind of wonder why she doesn't just tell Ned. I don't know, maybe she's just very prideful. But I think if she would have told Ned and her mom, Catelyn, I think they would have definitely put a stop to that. That's just me though. But Arya basically, she runs away to her wolf Nymeria. And, you know, Nymeria is basically just chilling there, like, oh hey, what's up? You know, just chilling there. And Arya goes up and, you know, she wants to see Nymeria. You can tell she feels really happy being with her direwolf, which kind of starts showing that they kind of have an actual bond with their direwolves. And then this is where Arya goes and runs off, and she runs into Jon, who's sitting on the windowsill looking at a sparring match going on, and I think it's between Robb and Joffrey. And you know, Arya asks, you know, why aren't you down there sparring with them? And Jon, you know, says, you know, he's brooding again, but what he says is also true. You know, bastards are not allowed to hit princes, you know. And that's kind of just actually true. Like, they can't do that, you know. He'll get killed basically if he does that. And you know, he asks, you know, Arya, you know, why are you here, you know? And, you know, Arya wanted to, you know, see the sword fighting, which again just shows that Arya she's very tomboyish, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that, you know. She wants to learn sword fighting. This is where there's like the sparring going on between Robb and Joffrey, and then Joffrey basically loses because he's just a fucking loser, you know. And Joffrey is already kind of already being a stuck-up prick, and the guy who's doing the spar, I think it's Sir Roderick, but he basically says, you know, hey, do you guys want to go another round? And Robb's eager to go another round. And Joffrey says, this is a game for children. I'm so sophisticated. I hate his attitude. It's so annoying. And I think somebody tells him you are, like, I think it's Sir Roderick says, you know, you are children, you know, you are children. So, you know, what the hell are you bitching about? But Joffrey's like, I'm a prince, you know. I grow tired of play swords. And he wants to use live steel. Live steel is literally, sharpened blades, you guys. Now, I would have allowed it. I mean, killed this dude already. He's so annoying. And, but Sir Roderick, he's saying it's too dangerous. I'll allow tournament swords with blunted edges, basically just non-sharpened blades, which is still kind of dangerous using those, honestly, guys. I don't recommend you guys dueling with even blunted swords. It's still very dangerous, you guys. You fucking break somebody's bones doing that. So don't do that either. But this is where Joffrey's sworn sword, the Hound, approaches him and tells him, this is your prince, blah, blah, blah. You need to do it. But, Sir Roderick doesn't allow it. It's too dangerous, it's not going to happen. And this is where Joffrey walks away. I knew it. I'm the best, He's so annoying, but it's really interesting how in these POV chapters you get like entire dialogue and narrative that isn't coming from the person who's the POV is from, So what I mean by that is, this isn't coming from Arya, This is coming from Arya's watching it happen, and then we're seeing it from her point of view. So that's one of the things that I find really interesting about this. But other than that, there's really nothing much more in this chapter other than it just kind of shows that Arya just doesn't like, doing the whole lady stuff thing. It's not something she wants to do. She doesn't, just like in the show, she doesn't want to be a lady. And, I like it, I think it's good, but I do kind of find Arya a little bit of annoying too. She's kind of just really whiny and kind of like, I want this, and runs away and pouts if, something doesn't go her way. I mean, dude, your stitches failed. It's not the end of the world. I mean, you can really tell how privileged these kids are, honestly. But anyways, moving on, we now arrive to Bran. And Bran is basically climbing up the wall, which you guys know where this is leading to, okay? He's basically climbing up the Winterfell wall. And, it mentions, one of the things it mentions is that, one of the things it mentions about Bran is that he does this a lot. He climbs a lot, and it basically it basically shows that number one, Bran is a really good climber. So it kind of shows foreshadowing to what is about to happen, because okay, you are about to see, okay? But he's basically climbing up the tower, and it's which, by the way, there's it describes it as there's gargoyles on here, which I kind of would have liked to see that in the show too, but budgeting issues. But as he climbs up the tower and gets to the window, he starts hearing voices, and the voices are basically talking about the voices are basically talking about they're mentioning Ned, they're mentioning Lysa Arryn, and the voices talking are, Bran just describes him as a man and a woman, but he's basically hearing them talk about the threat that Ned Stark might pose as Hand of the King, and if you don't know who these two people are, it's going to turn out to be Jaime and Cersei, and they're basically talking about the threat Ned's going to pose to them. And Jaime mentions, I'd rather have an honorable enemy than an ambitious one, and he mentions Littlefinger. And he's basically saying, I'd rather have Ned Stark as my enemy than somebody like Littlefinger. But they're talking about Ned, and this is where Bran gets a look. This is where Bran gets a look into who's talking, and he sees that it's Jaime and Cersei. And then as soon as he sees it's Jaime and Cersei, he sees that they're starting to he basically he leans in a little too far to get a look, and that's when now in the show, Jaime catches him and then runs over to him. But in the book, he loses his footing. Like, he leans in too far to take a look, and he sees that it's the Queen and Jaime having sex. And then he loses his footing and nearly falls, and that's when Cersei sees him. And then that's when Cersei says, like, tells Jaime, like, oh, like, there's someone at the window, and then Jaime goes to check. It's Bran. Jaime helps him up, and then, just like the TV show, Cersei says, he saw us, and then Jaime's like, here, take my hand, boy. And, he asks him, like, yo, you're just a child, aren't you? He doesn't say quite the little climber. He says, you're just a child. And Bran says, yes. And then he looks over to Cersei. And this is actually one of the different things from the show. In the show, Jaime, doesn't seem to care. And then he just shrugs. The things I do for love. And he shoves Bran out the window in the show. In the book, he actually is angry about it. Like he looks at Cersei with, like, just anger, and he goes, the things I do for love. And then he pushes Bran out the window, which I kind of found it interesting, because it's almost basically like Jaime is angry that he's doing it because he loves Cersei. Like, he doesn't want to do it, but he loves Cersei and he'll do anything for her, and he seems to hate doing that, which I just found it to be I kind of liked it better than Jaime just, I don't really care, I'm just gonna shove him out, because it kind of already shows, like, he's not totally evil, which they make him seem like just a huge evil douchebag in the TV show when you first meet him, which, I'm not upset about that. It's whatever. I'm just nitpicking at this point. But I kind of wish they had just done that in the show. But anyways, whatever. Bran gets pushed out the window, and there's really not much to say about this chapter. It's actually pretty short. I think it's one of the shortest chapters so far in the book. But Bran gets pushed out the window, and he is falling, and he can't get up. And then it just says that I think it says that the last thing he heard when he hit the ground was howling, and then the last thing he saw was just crows circling. But he basically fell, you guys. Is he gonna die? I don't know. We'll see. So now we go to the next point of view, and this one is Tyrion, and it mentions that it's there's been a couple days that had already passed since Bran fell. In the show, it doesn't say how long has passed, but in the book, it does mention it's been a couple days already. So he's been knocked out cold for a couple days, and then we get the whole similar scene to the book where Joffrey talks to Tyrion. Tyrion tells him Tyrion tells him, hey, you need to go to Lord and Lady Stark, and and you're gonna offer them your comfort, and then Joffrey's like, well, what good is my comfort gonna do? The boy means nothing to me. Tyrion just slaps the shit out of him. What a hero, dude. I'm glad he did that. God, I'm just so glad he slapped him. So we get the same scene as in the show. So, honestly, a lot of it's kind of just really, really mirrors the show where he basically goes to eat with his siblings, Jaime and Cersei. And, he basically goes to eat with his siblings, Jaime and Cersei. We kind of get it's really just similar to the TV show, honestly. And this is where Jaime mentions that Lord Eddard had a brother named Brandon as well. One of the hostages murdered by Aerys Targaryen. And it says it seems to be an unlucky name, which is just like, Jaime. I kind of found that funny, honestly. It's just a way of saying What a shame, huh? Like, knowing full well he's the one who pushed Bran out. Like, this guy just has some balls, you know? But this is where, you know, Tyrion tells them that that if Bran were going to die, he would already be dead. So, you know, he's that basically Tyrion says that if Bran wakes, that that he's probably not going to be able to walk. And this is where, you know, Cersei's like, if he wakes, you know. And this is where, they know, oh no, we should have probably finished him off, you know. So you basically, you know, Bran could still live, you know. Will he? I don't know. You know, we don't know. This is where they mention that Bran's wolf is basically sitting outside his window night and day, and he's basically howling, and then it says basically Tyrion like comments that he could swear the wolf is keeping him alive, which again hints at magic. Like, could it be that his connection to his dire wolf is keeping him alive, you know? So I don't know, you know, it could be it, you know, it could be alluding to magic, you know? And this is where even Cersei says, like, there's something unnatural about, you know, those animals, you know? And she's like, I'm not going to have any of them come south, you know? But again, it hints like at magic, you know? Could there be some magic, you know, to this, you know? I don't know, you know, there could be some magic, you know? So next we get, next we go to, basically Tyrion is mentioning, you know, just like in the show, that he's going to go visit the wall. And then, you know, Jaime's like, oh, you know, tell me you're not thinking about taking the black, brother. And, you know, Tyrion just makes his usual comment, you know, oh no, you know, the whores would go begging from, you know, Casterly Rock to Dorne, and he just wants to piss off the edge of the world. Just basically Tyrion Lannister stuff. And, you know, again, we get the same scene like the show where Jaime is like, you know, where Jaime's is basically saying, like, you know, you know, my dear brother, you know, sometimes I wonder whose side you're on, you know. But it's just it's basically, you know, he's just saying that because Tyrion's saying that, like, oh, he would be interested to hear what Bran would have to say if he wakes up, you know. And it's just basically, you know, if you know how the Lannisters are raised, you know, Tywin raises kids, you know, to appreciate family legacy and dynasty and blah, 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 all that stuff. So, you know, it's kind of just Jaime kind of trying to, in my view, trying to be a little too much like Tywin. And Tyrion just answers back like, oh, you wound me. I love my family, you know. Again, it's nothing too crazy in this chapter. It's very similar to the TV show, you know, just, you know, Tyrion, you know, just basically Tyrion and basically just Tyrion and, you know, talking with Cersei and Jaime. So it's nothing too crazy yet, you know. But so the next sorry guys, I'm looking through my my notes. So the next chapter we get is Jon, and Jon basically goes to visit Catelyn, and Catelyn goes to visit Bran, and Catelyn's there, and he's just basically, it's kind of similar to the show, you know, he wants to you know, just say goodbye to Bran, and Catelyn just doesn't want him here. She's like, what are you doing here? You know, get out of here. I don't want you here. And again, she's in a way, you know, she's mourning. You know, you got to remember her son's like basically dying for all she knows, you know. And she basically tells him, you know, if you don't get out of here, I'm going to call the guards. And Jon just like, call them, I don't care, call them. I'm going to say goodbye to my brother, He's standing his ground, and again, this a lot of this could just be attributed to she's just angry because her son's dying, and basically Jon says goodbye to him. I'm going to the wall. Hopefully you can visit me once you wake up. It's just similar to the just similar to the TV show, And he's telling him, don't die, don't die here. We're all waiting for you to wake up, And then this is where Catelyn starts telling Jon. She says that she went to the Sept and she prayed. She prayed 7 times to the 7 gods, to that Ned would leave him here with her, and she's basically kind of like feeling guilty, like she feels like she's the one who caused this to basically, because she wanted him to stay so badly, the gods retaliated and did this to him. So now she got what she wanted. Basically, he's going to stay. So she feels bad. And I kind of feel bad for her too. She feels guilty, obviously. And then this is where Jon says it wasn't your fault. He's trying to be nice. And this is where oh my God. She calls out to him and it should have been you. What a fucking total bitch. Wow. That was just so fucked up, you guys. But this is where so this is where now Jon's getting ready to leave. He says goodbye to Robb, and then Robb's like, "Hey, so was my mother mean?" And she's like, "No, she was nice. Don't worry. She's cool. She was nice to me." Which, just shows, Jon's like, he doesn't want his brother to feel bad for him, He's taking one for the team, After that, he goes to Arya and he gives her needle, as you guys know in the show. He gives her needle. And this is where he gives her he gives her needle as well, but only it's not an actual needle in the book. It's an actual sword he gives her. So it's not a needle. Now it is a very thin blade, but it isn't it isn't a needle, Like in the show it's so fucking it's if you've seen the show, you know what I mean, but it's actually a sword. It's actually like a real sword. So which I just thought it was, I don't know why they changed that in the book, but I don't know why they changed that in the show. Like, what was the purpose of it? I don't know, but it is described as a sword. Just, it is skinny, but yes, it's described as a sword. So, this is where Jon tells her, first lesson, sticking with the pointy end, This is where Jon says, name it. And then this is where Arya names it, Arya names it as a needle. And I just found that interesting because, Arya hates needlework, but by naming it needle, it's a way for her to reject the whole being a lady thing, Hey, she's naming this needle, this is going to be her needle, That's basically what I saw it as. And, again, I liked it. I thought it was cool, But now we're going back to, sorry, I got looking at clicking through my notes right now. So now, there wasn't too much to say about that chapter other than, Jon just, saying his goodbyes to everybody. Again, Catelyn was a total to Jon. She was so mean to him. But I don't know if, again, there's very little to go off of. I don't know if that was just because she was in a bad mood or if she just always treats him like that. If she always does treat him like that, I hate her. She's awful. You should never emotionally abuse a kid. However, I'm going to place most of the blame on Ned because if Catelyn really does treat Jon like that, Ned is responsible because they live in a world where men have all the power. At any point, Ned could stop Catelyn from mistreating Jon, and he just doesn't. And I just, I I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't. If that was my son, I would definitely be like, yo, dude, you ain't going to mistreat him like that. You're going to stop right now. So if Catelyn really does genuinely mistreat Jon, I'm going to put most of the blame on Ned, honestly. You guys could blame me for that. I placed all the blame on the Nedster. So now the next POV we go to is Daenerys, and it takes place during her wedding to Khal Drogo, you know. And Daenerys is basically trying not to be scared. She's trying to remind herself that, you know, she's Daenerys Stormborn, you know, she's a princess, you know. But she's very scared. Like, she's actually afraid of this wedding, you know. She doesn't want to marry him. And then the Dothraki are just freaking scary, you know. She describes them literally as like monstrous, you know, as they're more beasts than humans, you know. And then she was also afraid. But she also mentions that she's afraid of Viserys and afraid of failing him. I really hope somebody kills Viserys soon. But the biggest thing I mentions that she's afraid of is what would happen after, you know, when nighttime came, you know, when it's time to, you know, hook up, you know, because remember, she's 13, you guys, she's 13. But she's trying to, you know, reassure herself. She's the blood of a dragon. She's trying to stay strong. I feel so bad for her, man. Oh, my girl. Jeez. Poor Dany, dude, honestly. And this is where, Khal Drogo's, you know, talking to her in Dothraki, you know, and she obviously doesn't really understand much. And she's just dreading having sex with this guy, you know. And I know the book describes it as like he's like towers over her. He's almost like I think it describes it like he's almost like almost twice as tall as she is. Like it mentions like that she almost comes up to his waist. And God, dude. And this is where you know, she's receiving all of her gifts and stuff, you know. She's getting gifts from like the, you know, Dothraki, from, you know, Magister Illyrio, and then this is where she meets. This is where she is introduced to Jorah. Now, he gives her just like in the show, he gives her the histories and songs of the Seven Kingdoms, you know. And this is where Magister Illyrio gives her his gift, and it's the dragon eggs. You know, I mean, she also receives like the finest silk and stuff. You know, all basically all the stuff that she got in the TV show. But this is where she gets the dragon eggs, and then they gave her, you know, but they also give her, you know, all the other gifts, you know, slippers, you know, jewels, you know, stuff like that, you know. So she basically gets a lot of gifts, but she gets her dragon eggs, and, you know, it says that they're from beyond the lands beyond Asai. And this is where Khal Drogo gives her gift, which is he gives her a horse, and you know, he helps you know, Daenerys on, you know. Now, she doesn't know how to ride a horse. Like, she actually tells him, like, she asks, like, what she should do. And Magister Illyrio tells him, you know, take the reins, you know, and ride. You're not going to be going far anyway. And Daenerys is literally, like, just praying, like, that she doesn't, like, get kicked off the horse, you know. But it does say that this is her first time, you know, riding a horse, you know. And it actually says that, you know, riding a horse, she doesn't feel afraid, which kind of shows, like, you know, Daenerys is kind of sort of already trying to make the best of the situation, but she feels empowered on the horse, basically, is what I kind of saw it trying to allude to, you know. Probably, I think one of the reasons is because the Dothraki ride horses. And I think by her riding a horse, she kind of feels like on the same level as them, you know? And then this is where it's time for her to go off and do the nasty with Khal Drogo. And then this is where Viserys goes up to her, tells her, make sure you please him or I'm gonna beat you. He basically is saying that, guys. Like, I think his exact words were, you're gonna wake the dragon like it's never woken before. And oh God, I hope somebody kills this guy soon, okay? And she's trying to, I feel so bad for Daenerys. She's trying so hard to be brave, and she's like, I'm the blood of a dragon, and a dragon's never afraid. But she's terrified, you guys. She's so scared. It even says, like, she felt like so fragile when Khal Drogo was picking her up. And she starts crying. And then like she's asking like Khal Drogo questions, and then all he does is say no. Like all he says is no. Like that's like the only word he knows how to say, And then and she's just so terrified, you guys, like so scared, And then he starts undressing her, and then Daenerys like tries to tell him like no, like she doesn't want him to touch her, And then it's just the scene, I really feel uncomfortable describing it because she's 13, but eventually when he reaches in a certain spot, she finally relaxes and smiles and says yes. And I don't really think she likes it. I think it's just she's desperately trying, she's desperately trying with every fiber of her being to make the best of the situation. And it's just, I feel so bad for her, you guys. I feel so bad. And it's such an uncomfortable scene, man. I mean, imagine being 13 and having to I feel awful for her. I just don't know what else to say, guys. I just feel really bad for her. I mean, you really feel everything she's going through. She's desperately trying to be brave, and I think finally it's not even that she wants it. It's just she decides to finally come to terms with it. This is her new reality. It is what it is. There's nothing she can do about it, And so next we go off to Ned Stark. And Ned Stark and Robert are basically writing and I think it says I think they're basically writing, and then they're talking about they're basically, Ned's like mentioning like, hey, what do you say, just you and me, both of us two, just traveling the countryside, And then Ned's like, oh, well, we can't do that anymore. We have duties to attend to, honorable man, honorable Ned Stark, And this is where Robert is, talking about the, when they were younger, the girls that he would have when he was young. And then he asked, what John's mother's name was, because he said, what's her name? The one you were with that one time. He's like, your bastard's mother, what was her name? And then Ned says, her name was Wyla, and I would rather not speak of her, And then he's like, I would rather not speak of her, And then this is where Ned says, like, I dishonored my wife, I dishonored, Catelyn, And it just shows like, Ned feels, obviously he feels guilty, of the whole, having Jon as a bastard, which if you've seen Game of Thrones, where that story leads to. I'm not going to touch on that yet, but one of the things now that occurs is Robert hands Ned a letter which basically says basically says that Daenerys, is married. Basically says Daenerys married Khal Drogo. And Ned asks, well, who's your source? Who's giving this information? And he says, it's Sir Jorah Mormont. So the guy that gave Daenerys the books, of the history of the greater houses, and he's basically telling her he's our spy. He's feeding us the information in real time. And Ned says, okay, yes, so what? She married a Dothraki horse lord, so what? Well, Robert wants to kill her. He wants her dead, And Ned's like, dude, she's a child, which she literally is. She's 13. He tells him murdering innocents is vile and unspeakable. And Robert just gets angry. He's like, well, what about what Aerys Targaryen did to your brother? He said, what Aerys Targaryen did to your brother was unspeakable. When Rhaegar, and this is where you learn that Rhaegar sexually assaulted his sister, Ned's sister Lyanna. I'm not going to use the hard R. I don't want to get banned, but he says, how many times do you think Rhaegar had his way with Lyanna? If you've watched the show, you know where this also leads to. I'm not going to get into that again. But he says, Robert says, I'm going to kill every Targaryen I get my hands on until they're all dead, just like their dragons, It's like, he says, I should have killed them when it was easy, but Jon Arryn was just as bad as you, and he told me not to, and I listened to him. So basically, Jon Arryn is the reason that Robert didn't try and kill Daenerys and Viserys when they were children. And then, Robert's genuinely worried. He says, it says Khal Drogo has 100,000 men. What if they cross the Narrow Sea? Which is a legitimate concern. I mean, if they do cross the Narrow Sea, it's 100,000 people right off the bat that are crossing and attacking. You got to think about it. Westeros is a medieval time, and in those times they had to assemble, their forces through nobles, Yeah, it's going to take some time, By the time that happens, it might be too late, So he says one of the things Robert says is that if they cross, what's going to happen then, it's like, how quickly do you think the people are going to turn on us, And this is where Ned's like, oh, he's not going to cross, there's no way they're going to get across the Narrow Sea. But again, I think that's very narrow-minded of Ned. I mean, it's to say that they'll never get across. I mean, really, is it that hard to imagine? I mean, all it would take is a couple ships to get across. Now, it is implied that the Dothraki are scared of the Narrow Sea, so they probably can't. That's a huge deterrent. If you're scared of the Narrow Sea, you're obviously not going to want to cross it. But again, I back Robert up in this because I do think it's very, what's the word for it? It's very naive to think that there's no way in hell that they'll ever cross the Narrow Sea. So, one of the things that, they're talking about who's going to be the new Warden of the East, which that's what Jon Arryn was. He was a Warden of the East, because whoever's the Lord of the Vale, where Jon Arryn was from, is a Warden of the East. And Robert mentions he's choosing Jaime Lannister to be the Warden of the East, and Ned's like, Robert, his father Tywin is already Warden of the West. Why are you giving them even more powerful? You're giving the Lannisters control over the East and the West. And this is where Robert sorry for that cough, but this is where Robert's like, he's my wife's twin brother, But Robert's just, now this is where I don't agree with Robert, because Ned has a point. You're giving them way too much power. And Robert, either he's a complete and total buffoon, or he just doesn't care and just wants whatever's easier, whatever's going to give him the least amount of headache. But Ned's like, hey, like, you know, you can't put Jaime. He has no honor. You know, he killed Aerys. You know, he killed his own king. And Robert, again, this is where I agree with him again. He's like, well, somebody had to kill Aerys, and if Jaime didn't do it, it would have been either you or me. And then Ned says, like, yeah, but we were not to be as sworn protectors. Which, again, just shows Ned's very narrow-minded view of honor. It's so, like, it kind of, like, you know, it's very annoying sometimes, you know. Ned's, like, way too honorable sometimes, you know. But this is where Robert is, this is where they mention during the narratives, like when they're narrating stuff, you know, Ned mentions that, like, when he reached the throne room, that, you know, Aerys was already dead, and then it says Jaime was already sitting on the throne when Ned got there. He was sitting on there, and Jaime just told him, I was just keeping it warm for you, you know. He basically says like he showed no remorse about what he did, no nothing. Like, he wasn't upset or anything. If you watch the show, you'll know why Jaime killed the Mad King. We'll get to that when we get there, but and then Robert's like, well, I'm not gonna mistrust them just because he sat on the throne for a couple minutes, you know, if that's what you're complaining about. But Ned's biggest issue is that just Jaime just seemed to show no remorse or care that he killed his own king, you know. And then one of the things Robert says, like, oh, maybe he was just tired. Killing kings is a lot of hard work, but you know, it's kind of just Robert being Robert. But one of the things that I really liked about this chapter is you really get to see, like, it's not all black and white. Number one, you get to see Robert is just he's very just hates ruling, clearly. But another thing you get to see is that Ned is basically like, Ned's trying to come up with his own version of what he thinks is right. You know, Ned has his version of honor, and he's more concerned with you know, somebody's more, you know, moral judgments, basically. Whereas Robert, he kind of just seems to be the type that he just wants whatever's going to be easiest for him, whatever's going to give him the least amount of headache, you know. And I think that's what's the biggest difference between the two. Robert kind of just wants what's gonna be easiest, where Ned wants to go with what's right. I don't think either of them are right. I mean, yes, you obviously want to have a moral and sound realm, but at the same time, like, Ned kind of sees things as too black and white, which is a very huge detriment, honestly. I don't think it helps matters, honestly. I think it just makes things worse. But that's just my opinion, though. You know, it could be, I mean, I could be wrong, you know. That's just my opinion. But nevertheless, though, well, I like I said, I can see it coming from both their sides, you know. I can see it from Ned's side, you know, like, yeah, you know, we don't need to kill, you know, Daenerys, she's just a child, but I can also see, you know, Robert worried about a legitimate threat pose, you know. But, you know, again, it just kind of shows the whole, you know, gray areas of just Game of Thrones just in general. With that being said, guys, I was going to do a continuous nonstop continuous version of this, but I do need to stop right now, guys. I'm starting to lose my voice. I've been talking so much already. So we are going to stop short right here. So we have stopped on Ned 2. And we will continue next video on Tyrion 2. I think we're at least like maybe like 1/5 of the way done with the story. Maybe a fourth, I don't know. But guys, that is it for this video. If you guys liked this, video, you know, subscribe for me to upload the next part of it. But with that being said, guys, we will be bringing this video to an end. And yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed. I will upload the next one sooner rather than later.